The Louisiana Seafood Board is proud to sponsor Miss Lucy's cooking series. Louisiana cooking is known around the world. And Louisiana's main ingredient? Seafood. Brought to you by the crawfish farmers and harvesters of Louisiana-grown crawfish.
Hi, I'm Miss Lucy, and I've been told I'm real outstanding in my field. Of course, here on Zonbrecker Farm, we have rice fields and bean fields. Not string bean fields, but soybean fields. And we'll be cooking some beans today. So come on, chap, let's get to cooking. Bonjour, welcome to Miss Lucy's Cajun Classroom. I'm your host, Miss Lucy, and your teacher. And today, I'm going to teach you how to cook some beans, string beans that is. But first, we're going to prepare a wonderful jambalaya to go with that vegetable. Okay? So I've started browning my sausage. Of course, you can use andouille, and it gives it a richer, spicier flavor, and that's what I'm using today. I call it sausage because andouille is a French sausage. We're going to brown this real pretty because it'll form a gratin on the bottom of the pot, which will add to the flavor of your jambalaya. Righty. So while that's browning, I'm going to go and chop my onions, bell pepper, and celery. Because you know, you've got to have the trinity in a great jambalaya. So I'm going to get here. First thing I'm going to do is get the onions. I don't like chunky onions in my jambalayas, so actually what I'm going to teach you is how to fine-tune these. This is real small. It doesn't take as long to cook that way. You don't want your onions to be chunky. Okay, so this is how you chop them. Okay. I'll add these to the bowl I've already pre-cut. And this is your celery. Do the same thing. You want to go ahead and chop them real fine. Yeah, good. A lot of the cooks like chunky vegetables, and of course that's your choice. If you like it chunky, that's okay, but I prefer mine real fine. It seems like the flavor gets absorbed much better and quicker that way. And of course, time is very important in the kitchen. Okay, this is your celery. I've already pre-cut some, which I'm losing some on the board here, but that's okay. And then my bell pepper. I'm going to chop up some more bell pepper, which I need to add. Of course, you julienne them first, like this. Okay. Real fine. Real hard. Be careful not to cut your fingers, but now it's very important to have good sharp knives, but sometimes the knives that are the sharpest are not the ones that cut your fingers. Sometimes the knives that are not the sharpest are the ones that cut your fingers. Put that in here because I'm going to use that. Okay. Now, then we'll have the onion tops, which will go in last. Of course, this is already rinsed. You make sure your onion tops are rinsed. I like to cut mine all even, the tips like this. And of course, here you go. You go again, very fine, real quickly. Now, I've been taught by some of the schools I went to that when you lay your fingers against the knife, you can go quicker, and that'll keep you from chopping the fingertips off into the food. So maybe that's a good rule to remember. Now the next step, see this? This is perfect. The next step is that I'm going to take the sausage, andouille, whatever, out of the pot, lay it on absorbent towel, because this helps the grease to just be absorbed here. Yeah, that's why they call it absorbent towel. It absorbs the grease or whatever, water. So, okay. See how pretty? Oh, they're so tasty. And of course, I'm going to add my onions, bell pepper, and celery to this because you need to saute that. First is the onions. Let's see. Okay. This, I'll add my celery next. There you go. And my bell pepper. Very good. And I'll mix it all together and let it saute real quick and easy. Now, round this together. You saute this. You don't want to overcook this because you'll be cooking it with your rice and your wonderful shrimp and crawfish. And how can you go wrong with those two ingredients when you make a jambalaya with those? Okay, then I'm going to throw my sausage or andouille back in. All together. Very good. All right, now the next ingredient, of course, is going to be your tomato sauce. Yeah. Just plain canned tomato sauce. Yeah. Oh my gosh, look, it's getting prettier and smells so good. Okay, that cook. Now this is supposed to cook for about maybe 10 minutes, but due to time element on TV, I'm gonna have to just saute it all together for just a few minutes, a few seconds maybe, while I add my main ingredient here. Of course, I'm gonna have the shrimp, the beautiful Louisiana shrimp. Okay. Okay, then the crawfish. Louisiana crawfish, of course. Yeah. Mix all this together. Now remember that seafood usually draws water to any dish that you will be putting it in and cooking it. So you have to allow for that. In a few minutes, I'll show you what I'm talking about because they'll have a tendency to draw water to this, okay? Okay. Now while this is coming to, maybe I should add just a little bit, just a dab of water to this because it seems like I have a big pot over here. So you have to kind of gauge yourself with your water. Okay, that's good. You don't want it to be too tight. Okay. Yeah. While I let this come to a boil, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure my rice. Make sure I have the right amount for this big pot. All right, now I'm ready to add, well, let me season it first, because I think when you season stuff before you add your rice to it, it blends it all together. So you put your pepper sauce in here. And of course, you have your sugar, your salt and black pepper. I'll use my salt box here that my grandmother always used. Do it by hand. Okay, you really need to season it very more than you would if you were just cooking regulars. Okay. Then, of course, the black pepper. See how your sauce is cooking real pretty? That looks so good. I think you could just throw it over cooked rice and not even bother to put the rice in there. But then, remember that when you add rice to a dish, the rice absorbs the flavor of the ingredients that's in. Rice in itself is basically tasteless. But what makes it so good is when you add it to something, it just absorbs the good flavors of the main ingredient. So, ooh, look how pretty this is. All right, well, now I'm ready to add my rice to it. Very good. Let's see. Okay, that's good. Just now, go here. Good. And you mix it all together. I guess I'm going to have to add my onion tops. Now you see how your rice really will, it'll double in bulk. So you'll have much more rice than what you're looking at now. Okay. Let me add my onion tops to this. Okay. This onion tops really add flavor, and it adds color, but mainly flavor. Okay. Oh, it's really boiling. Good. Now what we're going to do, we're going to just add just the right amount of water in here. Usually it's 2 cups of water to 1 cup of rice. But I'm going to gauge it by my eye since I've cooked rice practically every day all my life. It seems like all my life, but ever since I've been married anyway. Good. Now a good rule of thumb, well, the rule of finger to go by is that you add your water. And you want it to be sure to cook, so you kind of leave just a little bit above the rice, which is about the first joint of your finger. So rule of finger is usually what you like to use. Okay, water back up. Now, yeah, this is perfect, wonderful, great. See how nice, and I can almost measure it. If it wouldn't be so hot, I could just measure it right here. Right, you see? Oh yeah, I could do it. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover this and let it simmer for about 15, 20 minutes, just until the rice is done. And of course you don't want it to be mushy, so you must turn it off as soon as you see that all the water is washed out of the, cooked out of it rather. You just turn it off because you don't want it to get mushy on you. That's one thing that people make a mistake. They put either too much water or they let their rice cook too long. So I'm going to cover it. Let me stir it just one more time. Make sure oh yes.
Although we moved up to Jones over 40 years ago to grow rice, we found that since then that rotating crops is not only good for the land, but good for the pocketbook too. Since 1966, the Zonbreakers have raised both rice and soybeans. We have 800 acres, about as far as the eye can see. Of course, anytime you raise crops, you have to make sure they have plenty of good earth, irrigation, and fertilizer. That buzzing in your ears isn't a mosquito. It's the crop dusters that come over the land mornings and afternoons. Next time you go to your grocery or a produce market, give a thought to the farmers who feed America.
Well, now from soybeans to green beans. Of course, a lot of people like to call them snap beans. I don't know, it doesn't matter what you call them. Green beans, string beans, snap beans, they're still real good. And the reason I think they're called snap beans is when you cut the tops off of them, you can hear them snap. And that, makes sense to me, doesn't it? Right now, I'll cut these again in half because I'll be cooking these. What I've already done is that I have put some bacon browning here. This is some good old Cajun string beans. Is what my mom always cooked. So I'll brown my bacon in here. And then I'm going to add some onions to this. This is the bacon that I had. This is the raw product, but I've started cooking this. You want to brown it, and it makes a little bit of bacon grease in here, and it adds to the flavor. So then I'm going to add some onions and another ingredient. And chop up just a little bit more onions here. And then the next thing that I'm going to chop up, and listen carefully now, pay attention, can't go to sleep in class. Got to chop up some red potatoes. Not too fine, but then you don't want them too large either. You want them kind of chunky. Okay. You're going to add onions to your pot. It's all going to cook together. Tasty, tasty. And also the potatoes. Very good. This together. And those onions and that bacon just smell so good. Wait till those green beans are done. Look at that. Beautiful already. Okay. Then here comes the most wonderful ingredient, string beans. Green beans. Now, I love to use the fresh because fresh is always better. But if you want to, you may use the can if you don't have access to fresh green beans. You can always take the canned beans and you rinse them. Take them, drain them, rinse them, and then throw them in your pot and cook them just like you would these, the fresh beans. So, mix this all together. Now, you season it with a little pepper. And, of course, salt. Not too much because you've got bacon in there and the bacon will naturally make it salty. And hot sauce, pepper sauce. Good deal. Good. Now to that, you add a dab of water. Okay. Now I'm going to cover this and let it cook just until the green beans are tender. You don't want to overcook your green beans. Now, my mother loved to cook her beans until they were really mushy. But I really didn't care for them that much, but I didn't dare tell her that. So now that I'm in my own kitchen, I cook them like I like them. So let me check my jambalaya. I really think that it's about done. Oh, yes, look at this, how gorgeous. And you see how much rice it has made? I told you it would double in bulk. Very good. Can't wait. All right. So I'll cover this back again and let it finish cooking. It's got about maybe 10 more minutes of steaming to do because you really like to steam your rice, then you turn it off, okay? They're doing good. And of course, this is the finished product of the string beans. They're so good, they'll accommodate any meal. So that's the wonderful string beans right out of the field. And now it's time to prepare that wonderful cake that Julia Woods, a friend of mine from Bonita, has given me her recipe for. It's a fruit cocktail cake, which is very unusual. I've already added my dry ingredients here, which is the flour and the just the baking soda and the salt. And now I'm going to add my beaten eggs, 2 eggs, okay? Beaten eggs to this, and the oil. This is a very unusual cake, and when Julia told me she had a good recipe, I didn't realize how good it was. I knew it was unusual, but how good, I didn't realize it. All right, so you mix all this together, kind of like, looks like coarse cornmeal. Okay. Very good. Now that does it. All right. Now, I'll put this in case it falls. I'm going to add that very special ingredient, which is fruit cocktail. Now, you can't mix this in the mixer because it'll break up all your fruit, but you just add it this way. Okay. Juice and all. You don't take the juice out. And you blend it in together with a spatula. Okay, this is a very, very moist cake. Very delicious too. It's very tasty. You see, the juice from the fruit cocktail kind of takes care of the liquids in your batter. So it really makes it good. It's very moist and tasty. Good. Okay. Make sure you blend it all together. Very, very important. This is so good with a cup of coffee. Sure, after I bake this, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to enjoy. So I've already sprayed my glass baking dish with some nonstick coating, and then I'm going to add this to the baking dish. Yeah. It even smells good. See, took care of all the liquids in there. So, good deal. Now, the next thing that I'm going to put on top of this is I'm going to teach you how to do a very simple but real quick and easy mixture of light brown sugar and pecans, chopped up pecans. You want them to be really fine. You just sprinkle this all over the cake, and it melts right into the batter, and it cooks in with it, and adds to the flavor, and it's also very pretty when it comes out of the oven. Yes. I love the light brown sugar. I usually don't use the dark, so if you prefer the dark brown, it's okay, but my preference is the light brown. Okay, next I'm going to put this in the oven at 350 for about 30-35 minutes. You got to make sure it's well done, because remember, this is a very moist cake, and it's got to be completely done. Gorgeous cake, it's baked. Now for the mushing. Of course, I have to laugh because this is how I put this icing on this beautiful cake. Got your coconut. I've already melted my butter and my sugar together and blended it together. And then I add the coconut. Boy, can you imagine all these flavors coming together? This could be a Hawaiian cake, couldn't it? Can do just so much as far as I'm concerned, okay? They're wonderful to have. But you know, God gave you some fingers. And I think, well, He gave me some fingers that I have for reach. So I use them. And it takes them 3/4 of the time, so this is how it really works. Okay? Very good. That's good. That's coconut. So what I do, I pat all this real thin, like I guess a potato cake or whatever. Mush it down. I call it the mushing. So I mush this. Okay? Yeah. That's good. Just add it to your cake, and you pat it after it's all down, of course. Now you refrigerate this cake. Remember, when you have fruit cocktail, it may get sour on you, so you don't want to leave it out of the refrigerator. You have to refrigerate it. So, that's good. Can't wait to cut a piece of it. Now, it's so moist and so juicy. Now, mush all the icing together. And of course, when the cake is warm, you'll just kind of melt in there. And you'll scatter it out, okay? Good. Good. Lick my fingers when I get through. Yes. Yes, I love to bake. Cake baking is not my favorite, and Mama always made me bake pies. Mama was the cake baker in the family, and I was the pie baker. So my specialty is pies, but this recipe from Julia was just so great that I just had to share it with you and teach you how to make it, so you can make it for your family. Okay. Very good. Yeah. All right. And you mush it good, like this. That's why I call it mushing. Really, it's just kind of blending it in with your cake. Yeah. All right. So I'm through mushing. Good coffee. And I can actually have my cake and eat it too. But first, I'm going to enjoy a letter from one of my viewers. Miss Lucy, I just wanted to tell you that the first time I saw you on television, I thought I saw my grandmother. I had to look twice, and when I did, it was you. What reminded me of her was that wonderful smile and Cajun hospitality that flew through the television. I was born and raised in Crowley, Louisiana. I think you do a wonderful job of cooking and telling stories of the Cajuns through your TV shows. Keep smiling and cooking. Sincerely, Jennifer Cuffler from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing this letter with me. And thank you for joining me today. I hope that you have learned some lessons in Miss Lucy's Cajun classroom. See you soon, Chat.
The Louisiana Seafood Board is proud to sponsor Miss Lucy's cooking series. Louisiana cooking is known around the world. And Louisiana's main ingredient? Seafood. Brought to you by the crawfish farmers and harvesters of Louisiana, who remind you to please ask for and enjoy Louisiana-grown crawfish. To order Miss Lucy's cookbooks, please send check or money order to the address on your screen or call toll-free 1-800-257-5829.